It happened less than 10 minutes before the ceremony was set to start. The bride's ivory gown caught the afternoon light. Guests dabbed at happy tears. The quartet tuned their instruments, and everything seemed flawless, until a small voice cut through the celebration with a handful of words that stopped every heart in the room. The housekeeper's 3-year-old daughter grabbed the groom's trouser leg with shaking hands, tears sliding down her cheeks, and whispered, "She's mean to Mommy when you're not there." In an instant, the laughter died. The smiles fell away. A picture-perfect wedding became the start of a truth no one was ready for. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and second chances, take a moment to like this video. Drop a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. The groom, Julian Ashford, had built his career as a respected architect, and the trait people admired most in him was his honesty. He treated everyone the same, rich or poor, which was part of why his fiancée, Marisol Vane, adored him. She came across as warm, generous, and thoughtful, and people who met her tended to like her instantly. The wedding was held on a countryside estate under a clear sky, gardens in full bloom all around. Among the many staff working the event was a quiet housekeeper named Dana Reyes. She'd worked for Marisol's family almost 2 years, kept her eyes down, spoke only when spoken to, and did her job without complaint. Most guests barely registered her, except to hand her an empty glass or ask for a table to be cleared. Dana's whole world was her daughter, Ren. Since childcare wasn't an option that day, and 2 other staff had dropped out last minute, Marisol had grudgingly allowed Ren to wait in a back room with some coloring books, while her mother worked. Dana checked on her every chance she got. No one guessed the smallest person at that wedding would end up being the only one, honest enough to say what was really happening. After she spoke, Ren wrapped both arms around Julian's leg and wouldn't let go. She wasn't confused. She was scared, and it looked real. Julian crouched down to her level, trying to understand. Ren glanced toward her mother, who had gone white. Dana rushed over, plastering on a smile that didn't reach her eyes, apologizing over and over, insisting her daughter had an overactive imagination and was overtired from the excitement. Most guests bought it right away. Julian didn't. His own sister had once hidden years of mistreatment behind a practiced smile, and people had believed the smile over the fear in her eyes. He recognized that same fear now. The ceremony went on minutes later, but something in him had already shifted. Through the reception, he started noticing things he'd missed before. Dana tensing whenever Marisol got close. Marisol's smile flickering, just for a second, whenever Dana made the smallest error. Ren ducking behind her mother's legs the moment Marisol came near. Small things, but stacked together, they told a story he couldn't unsee. Once the ceremony ended and guests settled in under the reception tents, Julian slipped away and asked the event coordinator for access to the estate security office, claiming he needed to check on parking. The property had cameras covering the hallways, kitchen, storage areas, and staff entrances. He pulled footage from the past several days. What he saw made it hard to breathe. There was no injury caught on camera, nothing that would leave a visible mark, just a steady pattern of cruelty. Marisol cornering Dana in blind spots, loading her down with heavy supplies, spilling drinks on purpose and blaming Dana for it, mocking how she looked, threatening to call immigration on a woman who'd been born in Ohio, telling other staff Dana was lazy and untrustworthy, making her skip lunch while everyone else took breaks. Individually, each moment looked minor. Together, it was relentless. The footage also showed something worse. Marisol pinching Dana hard enough to bring tears when she thought no one was watching, careful never to leave a mark anyone would see. Ren had been there for all of it. She just described it the only way a 3-year-old could. She's mean to Mommy. Julian felt sick. He found Marisol alone in a sunlit courtyard and confronted her. She laughed it off first, then called it discipline, then said staff needed a firm hand. Finally, she turned it around on Dana for being too sensitive. She never apologized, She never denied what the footage showed. Instead, she accused Julian of caring more about a housekeeper than his own wife. That one sentence told him he didn't know the woman he'd just married. He'd always believed a person's real character shows in the moments no one important is watching. And the cameras had shown him exactly that. By late afternoon, people could tell something was wrong. Relatives huddled and whispered. Julian stood up and spoke to the room, calm but direct. He didn't air every detail to spare Marisol public humiliation, but he said plainly that he couldn't keep smiling. While someone had been suffering quietly in front of all of them, some guests got angry. Others said all newlyweds hit a rough patch. A few told him to just let it go. Then people started coming forward. The groundskeeper said he'd seen Marisol scream at Dana over a broken flower pot someone else had knocked over. The caterer admitted he'd been sneaking Dana food because she was so often denied breaks. A florist recalled Marisol tossing out an entire arrangement just because Dana had styled it differently than instructed. Every account lined up with the others. This wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a pattern. Dana stood there crying, silent. She'd never meant to expose anyone. She'd stayed because she needed the paycheck. Her husband had died in a car accident 2 years earlier, and every dollar counted. She told herself the humiliation was just the cost of keeping a roof over Ren's head. What hurt most wasn't the insults. It was worrying her daughter thought this was normal. When Ren spoke up, she hadn't meant to make a scene. She just protected her mother the only way she knew how. Kids say the things adults are too afraid to. Julian asked Dana to sit with him under a big oak tree as the reception wound down into quiet conversation. For the first time since anyone had known her, she opened up. She admitted she'd almost quit more times than she could count. That she cried in her car most mornings before her shift. That Ren kept asking why someone so pretty could be so unkind. And she never had an answer. Julian just listened. Not out of pity, because she deserved to be heard. As the afternoon wore on, guests started approaching Dana one at a time. A retired teacher hugged her. A nurse pressed a counseling referral into her hand. A lawyer offered free advice if she wanted to file a complaint. The event photographer offered to shoot free portraits of Dana and Ren together. Once she realized they barely had any photos of the two of them, small kindnesses started filling the space where silence had been. Inside, Marisol sat by herself. For once, nobody rushed to console her. She'd spent so long curating her image that she never saw the truth coming. From a toddler, of all people. Before the sun had fully set, Julian made the hardest call of his life. He told both families he'd be filing for an immediate separation. Some called it rash. He didn't see it that way. He believed looking away from cruelty made him part of it. Weeks later, word had spread through the community, not as gossip, but as a story people found genuinely moving. Dana landed a job at a family-run hotel where the manager actually valued his staff. She started smiling again, for real. Ren started preschool with a backpack she'd picked out herself, and stopped asking why people could be cruel. She started asking how people learn to be kind instead. Julian used part of his firm's yearly profits to fund vocational scholarships for single parents. He called it the Quiet Courage Fund, believing there were countless people quietly carrying heavy loads without anyone noticing. He kept his own name off it. Recognition was never the point. Months on, at a community event in the park, Dana watched Ren chase Bubbles across the grass, laughing without a trace of fear. Julian happened to be there too. There was no big romantic reunion. Life doesn't always wrap up that way. Sometimes the real win is just peace after a hard stretch. They said hello as friends whose lives had been changed by one small girl's honesty. Dana thanked him for believing a scared little kid. He told her the real hero had always been Ren. The adults had looked away, and she was the one who'd looked closer. Before we wrap up, drop a comment about one thing from this story that stuck with you. Do you think we should always take it seriously when someone, especially a child, quietly asks for help? As the sun dipped lower, Ren ran back over clutching a handful of wildflowers. She'd picked with permission from the park staff. She split them in two, one for her mother's hand and one for Julian's. The kind of simple, unprompted generosity only a kid thinks to give. Dana realized in that moment her daughter hadn't just spoken up for her. She'd reminded a whole room of adults that courage doesn't always look strong. Sometimes it looks like tears and small hands and an honest sentence. If this story stuck with you, like the video, leave a comment, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe for more. Kindness isn't wasted. Forgiveness can start the healing. Hope shows up when you least expect it. And sometimes the quietest voice in the room is the one telling the truth.